Welcome to the Smarter Systems, Better Care podcast. I am John Faulkner, your host, and today we have Dr. Larry Kuhn, who's founder of AspireVue, who combines his expertise in psychology and talent management to revolutionize workplace well-being and performance. So how are you doing today, Dr. Larry Kuhn?
I'm doing well.
It's a Friday, so I think we're all feeling pretty good right now. So, all right, let's start diving into our questions. First of all, what inspired you to start AspireVue, and how has your professional background shaped the platform's mission and values?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. What inspired me? I was a CFO at age 40 that I enjoyed a good spreadsheet. I enjoyed finances and I enjoyed being an entrepreneur. I had done a fair amount of that myself and working with computers and accounting and people, and I'd done HR management as well and COO. I had a lot of different positions.
Yeah.
With a wide variety of experiences, and I still wasn't really sufficiently challenged, and I knew that I was capable of more, but I was also finding that I didn't have a sense of meaning in spreadsheets and accounting, even though I like things to be in balance. So I started doing some assessments. So, I mean, this was back in 2003, and I started doing some assessments. I talked to people, did informational interviews, and one thing led to another, and it all came out pointing in one direction. It might be really good for me to be a psychologist, particularly a psychologist that works at the interface that would draw on my background in organization work and also how leaders made decisions, which was always something I was just very intrigued by. So I ended up packing up, grew up in the Midwest, moved to Beverly. I moved to California and took the next 8.5 years. Got my master's, my doctorate, did my postdoc and my internships, all that stuff. It was great. And I learned how to work with systems, whether that system was an individual, a couple, a family, a team, or an organization, and doing systems work. And so that really was what got me started to do what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, that sounds really inspiring too, how you kind of identified, I really resonate with this, and this is where I want to be at.
Yeah.
And then do you mind just sharing a little bit about your role and just how it fits in the bigger picture of your business?
Sure. So kind of to build where I went to graduate school, and the very first day, an individual came out. His name is Marv.
Mm-hmm.
He's now a colleague of mine, but he had started the program there at Azusa Pacific, where I went to school. And he said to us in a cohort, he says, the world doesn't need more therapists to cure the world's ills, but what we need are better systems of delivery for mental health and well-being. And where better to do that than in the workplace where people spend most of their time?
Absolutely.
Well, I'm just saying that the planets aligned around that particular purpose, and that is what led me to continue to do that. And so he happened serendipitously to be connected strongly with healthcare organizations up and down the West Coast. And he was doing high-level work with teams and restructures and reorgs and culture work. And he said, I know you're really good at assessment, and I suspect that you're really good at intervention work. Would you come and work with me? And so around 2013, I paired up with him and have been working with him in the healthcare space. And then I've expanded outside of healthcare as well, but doing what we do. So we'll do culture work, but we really started to develop a platform that could help organizations get the right people in the right jobs on the hiring.
Yeah.
Do the right hire first and eliminate the blind spots and not hire poorly that leads to catastrophic hires. That has ended up being really my bread and butter. That was the first initial entry into this space that could utilize a lot of the experiences I had plus the training. And we did really well. So we have several large enterprise level hospitals that we have worked with for over a decade. And we just continued to work with them first in talent acquisition and then expanding to performance management and then expanding further to leader development. And those are our three service lines that we offer, and we call that platform AspireVue.
It sounds like you probably had a light bulb moment, I'm sure, at the beginning when you probably, I'm sure all founders or just had moments where is this actually going to help people? And then probably through conversations, you found out, hey, this is something that really is working and clicking well. And we also have evidence that it is functioning as expected or even better, right?
Yeah. And as a founder, one of the things that I've also learned is, from my perspective only, I think something's a really good idea. Hey, we could do this. And, you can put a lot of time, effort, and money to do something that is amazing in your head, but then people don't like it or they don't want it or there's not a need. And that, I mean, I'm just saying that's like the worst type of blind spot to have. So, what we've sought to do in all of the work is we want to anchor it first to what are the needs of the organization? Is
Right.
it actually needed?
The
And
line.
so, by working with a number of different clients and customers in a development mode, that's what we've done to try to build a better mousetrap, but not because we think it's needed or even what the competition is doing, but how, not just how can I do what I do, but how can I do what I do in a way that's going to help you?
Right.
How is it going to help you? And that's been a kind of a learning experience for me as a founder. Have great ideas, but
Yeah.
you got to have it be good ROI and needs to sell,
Yeah. Needs to resonate with people, right? So yeah.
needs to work.
Yeah, thank you. And then what does like a typical day look like you as like a founder? Like what are you working on throughout the day? What are things you're thinking about, maybe worrying about, or what does that look like?
Yeah, good question. For me, I'm kind of a unique bird because here I am a psychologist, I'm also a very operational. I like focusing on the human side of change, but that also means looking at systems and how they work too. So
Yeah.
I see it as dialectic, moving back and forth, and I do a lot of moving back and forth. Today is a perfect day. I have back-to-back sessions, but it begins for me often a couple of times a week. I'm meeting with developers, and I have offshore developers. I have a US-based CTO, but
Yeah.
we use offshore developers. And I'm working with clients to define new customizations that they want and provide that to them at a reasonable cost. And then I work with my developers and I sketch things out and say, let's try this. And then we work with a user acceptance team that is a current client. Say, do you guys like this? Test it out. And they
Yeah.
like it. And if it's good, then we extend it into be available for other organizations. The rest of my time really then goes back and forth between two or three major activities. Typically for me, I'm doing some fundraising because we're raising some capital now so that we
Yeah.
can expand. I'm doing pitches to investors as well as pitches to new clients and continuing to fill the pipeline up front.
Yeah.
I do probably 2 or 3 hours of that a day. I still like to always retain about 2 or 3 hours if possible for clinical clients because I just love to work with people who are struggling, and that's one-on-one. It's not a pay bill, but it's
Okay.
making a difference.
Yeah.
So then I do that. Today we've started a series of online seminars, virtual events, inviting people to come in and talk about certain topics. So we have those that are running constantly that are free that people can join. And then we have some that are paid and where people can be a part of a cohort group and have dialogue around their blind spots or whatever else we're focusing on. So a lot of stuff that I've got going on right now. Plus, we have 15 coaches as well. And so coordinating resources with them. So those are the types of things that I do.
Yeah, that's a good mix of sounds like working through the software development cycle with your development.
That's the founder's life, man. If you want to make it, you got to wear a lot of hats.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you still have the clinical aspect too, but which is keeping you fulfilled. And I'm sure as well, generating ideas as you're talking to people, you're thinking of probably new things that are coming up in conversation too. So yeah.
My wife always says, "Oh, you're thinking again." I said, "I was thinking about," and she's like, "Stop."
Yeah.
I think one person can think of enough work to keep 10,000 busy.
Yeah.
So, and I like what Steve Jobs said, it's one thing to think of something, but then it's something entirely different to operationalize that.
Yeah. And implement.
That's where the real art is.
Yeah.
Make it happen. Get things done through people.
Absolutely. And then just looking now at like industry trends, what are some like major shifts that you're seeing in your industry right now? Because you're kind of in a cross between like software, but also talent management. So I'm just
Yeah.
curious what you're seeing.
Yeah, well, there's a couple things. Obviously, there's the AI, and you always have to stay ahead of the technology that is rolling and incorporate it. So that's what we've done. For me, I'm in the people business, and how is AI impacting? I think that when you look at talent acquisition, there's a fairly strong trend pushing toward being able to identify skills of people, and particularly in terms of job matching. Can
Yeah.
we match what candidates that are out there if they're, if applicant tracking and finding those candidates, which is not what we do.
Right.
But there's in HR, that's certainly recruiting is there. And AI can really assist in finding those people. Then the next step is, okay, now what about assessment? And that's what we do is once they've narrowed it down, that to me is another technology that for me, if it was me, I would not want AI active and involved in deciding whether or not I'm a good fit or a suitable candidate.
Right.
Now, it may be fine on determining is this a qualified candidate?
Yeah.
Absolutely. But in terms of suitable candidate, there's a lot of things that to me requires much more. And that's where, in terms of the industry goes, and even people who are doing assessments, there's a lot of sensitivity around. We don't want AI to be active and involved in actually choosing
Candidate.
the person who's going to get the job. Fine if you want to use it for other things. The second thing for me in terms of trends that are happening, as we've seen with COVID, and we've seen lots of changes and budgetary changes that have happened, that the winds of change are constantly blowing and there's constant evolution of things. I think more and more it does require that candidates have an increased, and employees and leaders have an increased vocabulary with which they can move. They can't just be a one-stop shop and say, well, this is what I do really well. If anything, they need to be able to collaborate well. And it comes down to people, processes, and technology. And often we'll see technology and process problems running around when really those are problems that are people problems in disguise. So I see a lot of the work that where there's a lot of genius coming out, whether it's AI or other people that have a lot of experience and skills, if they're not shoring up their integrative ability to collaborate well with other people, it doesn't matter how much you know, if you don't have that interpersonal thing. And that's where I see, as a result of a lot of the reliance that the younger generation has on technology, they, in my mind, as a Gen X person, they have lost some of that ability to how do you manage conflict or have a difficult conversation or even get on the phone and talk to somebody instead of texting. So I see that. The third area would be when you think about emotional intelligence. I don't, and coaching, because that's something that is our bread and butter as well when we're working with leaders. I don't believe that AI is going to, as good as it is at creating objectives and doing lots of those technology things, I don't think that it can produce the best it can do is produce what I call synthetic
Yeah.
empathy,
Yeah.
not real empathy of what goes on between people. It's synthetic and it's thin. And I think we're never going to be able to replace that. So those are the things to me, how do we keep the human factor, the human side of change infused into all of these activities? AI and technology is huge, but we need to keep the people thing first.
Yeah. People component is always going to be present in that decision making process. Like AI, I think, will help you get there faster, maybe in some cases, but then
Yeah, absolutely.
you're still going to need a human aspect to, make a determination. Is this person truly a good fit for our company?
Well, I think even just building an organization, I mean, I've just seen changes since I've been a founder, really focusing on, what am I developing in terms of software and technology. Just in the last 2 years, I mean, since AI has come out, suddenly take a look at LinkedIn. I mean, it's a dog eat dog world out there with everybody and their brother competing with everybody else. Now everybody's a content creator. And it used to be you had a real edge if you were a content creator. Well, now,
They're
this,
all
that, oh my, it's crazy. And I mean, it's a rat race and the rats win, it seems like. So you just got to really be after it or you will find yourself becoming obsolete.
very quickly. Yeah, absolutely. And then as far as, has any of the trends like impacted like your business specifically, or they've been like positive impacts to your business?
Well, it's been both positive and negative, I guess, strengths and challenges. On the challenges, leading with that, we've just had to really shift, like even in the software development. Um, I have upped my expectations of my development team to no longer work at a developer level. They have to be working at a consultant level. And then I need to be seeing those costs come down and turning around a lot faster using Cursor and other IDEs that they can turn that around instead of being so, I mean, they're going to see themselves worked out of a job very quickly So that has been one of the challenges, but also kind of an opportunity that we can use AI to say, with great agility,
Yeah.
let's develop this customization and go after that. So that's kind of been a mixed blessing. I think one of the other big things that happened for us, I was doing Zoom calls and and executive coaching and development before COVID and met a lot of resistance because people were hesitant to get onto a virtual call. They just didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
Then COVID came along, and now suddenly everybody and their brother is there. And then we saw in HR that everyone was like, oh, let's all move to the suburbs or move to home, and we're all going to be happier. And that didn't happen. Engagement scores continued to drop, an increasing sense of loneliness and disconnection. So I see these, the recent trends with the pandemic created certain opportunities and challenges for people that we're continuing to morph and have to adapt to.
Yeah. So that sounds like your developers are reeling with and dealing with AI, kind
Yeah.
of competing with them. But I think if I'm reading between the lines, is they're trying to learn how to use AI to just amplify their expertise even further, probably to make it even any, you know.
Yeah, I mean, 3 years ago, we were talking machine learning, and we
Yeah.
needed to teach them to train them up, and now that's not even a thing. I mean, we already have the advanced language processing stuff. It's what used to be the very thing that you were focused on now is no longer a thing, and something else has been there. And the challenge is the older people get, the more difficult it is to make these types of agile changes. So you've got in the workforce a wide variety of generations, with those who are able to move and flow and those who are reluctant. There's nothing new under the sun, but it's always like this, that, ever since the time of Plato, the older people would look at the younger ones and say, this is a crazy generation. We're never going to survive. And
Yeah.
the older ones are stodgy and they aren't willing to adapt. And there's nothing new under the sun.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think it's calling out like some things just don't change. It's just kind of in a different format,
Yeah.
basically. That's
Yeah.
that's kind of what you're saying.
Well,
Uh,
and I think you've had to change as well. I mean,
yeah,
you've adopted because things have changed.
yeah,
And we've watched that with you as well.
yeah, absolutely. And then just far as like the current state of your business,
Yeah.
what's working well for you guys right now, and then like what's been like frustrating, maybe barriers or things you've encountered? Because I heard AI, but there might be other things possibly.
Yeah, I think one of the things for us during the 8 years of our development of our software, we made a decision that rather than going after new clients and building a pipeline and scaling, that we wanted to work with the current clients list that we had, which was a handful, several enterprise clients, several
Yeah.
mid-market clients. And we decided we're going to build the architecture first
Hmm.
and not sell it until we've got the bugs worked out,
Yeah.
and let's just wow our current customers and develop those relationships. And that's what we did. That was great, and it gave us something now that we can scale. At the same time, the scaling part is a whole other animal. To make sales and to fill your pipeline, particularly in a marketplace that is heavy burdened with lots of competitors who are using AI, and maybe everybody and their brother is a life coach now,
Yeah.
and everybody and their brother is getting hit with all these things of how you can do it, and it's all sizzle and very little meat. So that has been a particular challenge that I thought several years ago, well, I would just be able to pivot when we were ready to scale up. Not so easy. Not so easy. So, you have to be very, flexible and read and try things and do A/B testing over and over and over again, what works and what doesn't work. And I think we've found something that works pretty well for us, to tap into the needs of the organizations that are out there and then really go after it. Not what do we do, but what can we do for you around these three areas. And we're growing,
Yeah.
and we've got 15 coaches now, and that's expanding. We have new people that are starting to use our platform as a white label,
Yeah.
so they can use it as a client portal with others. And that's a big opportunity as well. So people can have assessment and feedback, really good stuff, and track it through a journey process rather than just offering coaching or offering some light form of assessment, which might be useful for curiosity, but not really transformative.
Yeah, it sounds like you have like a complete holistic view of that process and really get
Yes.
your clients over the finish line with your software, like to just reaffirm like, hey, this is the right decision. Is right.
Yeah. Yeah. If we do see it as a journey, and what often happens is people will do a little assessment sometime, or they'll get a coach sometime along the way, and they took a not really a journey, they took a stroll because they ended up right back where they were and nothing really changed. We wanted to do something different, and when it comes back to the fundamental of we want a better system of delivery of mental health and well-being in the workplace. And that means people start here, they
Yeah.
get here, and you can track your progress along the way and get the support and the resources, both self-guided and coach-guided, to get there. And I think the whole thing is about provide to people a different experience that meets their needs. And right now, there's a big need for people to continue to develop, particularly their collaboration skills and keep being able to get along with other people. That's a real need right now, and people have blind spots around that, but it really is a need.
Yeah. And
And
then
that's fun to work on.
and you kind of were alluding to it too. I was thinking more about like metrics. Like how do you use metrics, or what metrics do you use to see that you are improving from like a
Yeah,
data? Because I'm sure you
yeah, that's great.
that. So,
Great question. On the metrics side, first of all, we use assessment. And the instruments that we use, we don't just use one instrument, but we use multiple publishers so that we can have cross validation from different perspectives
yeah.
of different instruments. So if it's, let's say we're working with a leader, then we'll have them take an assessment, not just dive right into coaching based upon something that they said that they wanted. No, let's have a baseline of assessment and see how you compare to thousands of others.
Right. Okay.
Then we say, let's get another piece of data, which is how do you see yourself? And have them weigh in by moving some sliders and look at the contrast between how they actually scored versus how they see themselves. Then we'll gather data from people who know them well, and they'll give them feedback confidentially. We call it reputation 360 feedback. So we'll capture data there. So now we've got several data points before we've ever set any goals. So we need to have those data points down. And then we say, the final piece, we go, if you're at your best, who do you aspire to be? So let's say, take warmth, for instance. There's a data point. If you see yourself like, well, I'm a 4 on warmth, and you actually score, I'm a 7 on warmth, and you think, well, where do I want to be? I want to be a 9. Well, maybe I don't want to be a 9. Maybe I want to be a 5. Then we allow people to weigh in with that. And that's why we call it AspireVue, is what do you aspire to? And then look at the discrepancy between how people experience you. And if everybody said you're actually a 3, and where do you want to be? Then we set goals around those specific objectives driven by that data, and then measure over time, 30, 60, 90, or however long it takes to get from here to where you want to be. And I have found that rather than trying to push change as a
Mhm.
psychologist, if people can set that aspirational goal out there outside of their circumstance, if they can get a good picture of that, what am I capable of? That will pull toward the types of behaviors that we want to see rather than trying to push it. And that's a fundamental shift from what I have found many people who are working on behavioral change
Yeah.
often will focus on, is trying to push some sort of behavior and not have that aspirational piece that is a strong linkage to identity and values in a very practical way. So that's kind of our structure and how we use data. Now we can measure and we can say, are we getting the ROI for the investment as well?
Yeah. That's a really interesting connection. So you kind of like the potential candidates that they're going to hire need to have like some idea of awareness of themselves too. Like they need to accept that maybe in that process, like, okay, I think I'm up here, but people see me here, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So if we're selecting, then here we're saying what's the discrepancy between the assessment that we've done for the position
Right.
and the assessment for candidates. If those are fairly well aligned, then we likely have kind of a hit that this is good alignment, a good fit, and they're likely to thrive in that role. If, however, that's discrepant, then they're not likely going to get hired. Then those who do get hired, let's leverage the value of that assessment data to create a development plan and coordinate with their supervisors so that they can lay out a pathway for their continued growth and build towards succession planning within the organization so they can have a trajectory and continue to thrive in alignment with what is important to the organization. That to me is my role, is how can I best facilitate the selection, onboarding, and engagement, and then help leaders leverage that and give them the tools they need to engage their direct reports. That's our focus really of what we're doing.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're doing great things. I mean, sounds like you've had clients for several years, the same clients. So you're obviously doing a wonderful job. So that just speaks to the kind of type of work you're doing. So, um,
Yeah.
and then just as far as like getting into like future goals, where do you guys want to be like 6 to 12 months from now? Like, what are your long-term goals that you're thinking about?
Yeah. For us, I think our number one initial goal is brand recognition.
Mhm.
I don't want to be the best kept secret in town.
Yeah.
We have the ability and the capacity to scale up significantly and to make a difference and even come alongside other organizations that are using other systems that maybe aren't as sharp as we are on these particular deliverables. So to partner with them and do that seamlessly. That's one, is to build brand recognition in terms of vision. I think the second for us, 6 to 12 months from now, I'd like to be able very soon to bring on a sales team so that I'm not wearing all the hats, but I can turn that over for lead generation and some of these things and operations, turn that over. I think we could do a pretty good job of selecting people for that because that's what we do. And I'm excited about that because then we'll be able to scale and make the type of difference that we've been wanting to do for a long time. That's really what it's been about. Is I could do one-on-one and have a lot of impact, and I do, and I enjoy that. But if I can do it more and more through teams and organizations, what are we capable of? It always comes back, what are you
Bigger
capable of?
impact. Yeah. That's what
A
you're looking
lot bigger impact. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be I did it, it's we did it. And what are we capable of? And that's fun to build something and see that come into being and make a difference in that way. That is what I was really always after in terms of making meaning
Yeah.
through this type of work.
Yeah, that's like a really good point too, is like you can have the one-on-ones conversation still, but like if the majority of the time is spent, like I think you probably always question like how big can my reach be with this, because like you said, you don't want it to be like the best kept secret that no one has ever heard about. Like you could have the best tool ever, but if no one knows about it, right? So
Yeah, but I'm not happy for just a fraction. I
yeah,
think that we are capable of making a significant impact not only within healthcare but in outside of healthcare with any organization, small, medium, or large, in
yeah,
terms of how well they select their people, onboard them, do performance management, and then develop their leaders.
yeah.
We've got something that's pretty unique, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I can tell that. I can see you're very passionate about it, and it's inspiring. Like you clearly are you love what you do, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah. And then if you could solve one major challenge today, what would it be? Like if you had a magic wand and said, "Hey, I want this fixed," what would it be?
I would think that if leaders could have an advanced level of perspective taking where they could have confidence in being able to, well, I'll put it this way. I have literally interviewed thousands of executives for roles, particularly in healthcare. And in all of those interviews, I always ask a question. What would be the one or two pivotal moments or people in your life that have really shaped who you are? And they'll give me something. And about 80 to 90% of them, they will say there was a person who either was a coach, a supervisor, sometimes a parent, but somebody, a teacher sometimes, but often it's a supervisor who saw something in me, kicked me in the seat of the pants sometimes, gave me feedback and gave me an opportunity and told me that they believed in me. And that's the person who I will always think of and remember who made a difference in my life. Now, I've come to call those people legendary leaders. There's a lot of supervisors out here who are looking for performance and they don't know or have a clue how to be that legendary leader. And if I could wave my magic wand, how can we help leaders in an organization, supervisors who I see as the facilitators of culture?
Yeah.
It's not HR and it's not rewards programs and benefits. It's supervisors at the interface between the supervisor and their direct report. If they can be that legendary leader to that direct report, we've made all the difference in the world. And so that's what I'm really passionate about is let's focus on equipping those people with that so they can give that experience
Yeah.
and be the legendary leader that you want to be. We all know maybe someone who was like that, but more of us can name the ones that were horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And
There's a lot of them.
yeah, and I'm sure, like you said, everyone's had that person, and they're kind of like the persona that you're trying to create in a spite, like you said, aspire to, which then obviously aligns with
Yeah.
the company.
And what made them that way?
Right.
If you unpeel it and look back, what was it that made them that way? There was something that made them legendary, and if we can capture that, I think we've got something figured out.
Yeah. And then just I had like a couple more questions. I think I should probably have one more question just asking. Do you see, because I want to expand about the legendary aspect. I think that's really interesting to think about.
Legendary
So
leader.
that legendary person do you think that's like possibly a widespread issue in the industry? Like people are struggling with that, like trying to make that connection at that point of the decision making process? Or I guess, what are your thoughts on that? Just to go deep.
Yeah, I think that often what we have is people that are in a survival needs in an organization. That's often what we have. So we'll have a lot of focus on performance, a lot of focus on compliance, keeping risk down for the organization, which is understandable. But at the individual level, there's a focus on looking good, feeling good, being right, and being in control. Those are the types of things that get a lot of our attention so that we can just survive. And with all of the changes that happen, that are constantly happening, there's this survival mentality that sets in that goes and bumps up against the types of things where we're saying, let's produce people with capacity and character and competence to be able to make a difference no matter what role they're in. So I see these two forces kind of working at one another in the same way that structure and chaos kind of work against one another
Yeah.
in organizations as well. That it plays out, but if we can really shift our focus over what are the factors that give rise to legendary leaders and the performance that we're really wanting, let's focus on those factors, not just the outcome. It's
Right.
easy to say, well, yes, I'm a results-oriented leader, but can we shift back and say, can we bring growth in as well as a focus on performance and move back and forth between these two?
Yeah.
That I think it's very capable for leaders. I think leaders are hungry for that, but they just don't kind of have the tools to get there.
Yeah, to make, I guess, to have like the clear idea of where to go, to take the appropriate steps to get to that point where you're trying to take them. And so that's kind of like where you come in as an intermediary to can make those connections for them and help
Yeah,
them.
help facilitate because people get stuck.
Yeah.
And when they get stuck, they end up repeating the same old patterns. And if you can come in and lift your eyes a little bit out of the mud hole that you're in and say, what are we capable of? It pulls us out of the mud hole. And that's something I learned on the farm when I'd get stuck. When people get stuck, they tend to do the same things. And
Yeah.
we don't have to keep repeating those patterns.
Yeah. And that kind of wraps up our podcast today. But I just wanted to thank you and sharing your story and what you're building at AspireVue. So thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, John.
Thank you.